Hey, it's a brand new era. Yeah, we're going to talk all about it. I am Gerard Bonner. This is the Wednesday edition of WWT Live. And in the last 2 days, we've crowned two new champions. There's a lot of other things to talk about as we whoop that trick or whoop the man or whatever. You'll figure it out on the other side. This is WWT Live.
Yeah. Now I'm going to go off. This is Shayna, the Queen of Spades, Baszler, and you're watching Women's Wrestling Talk.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.
Happy Wednesday, good people, and welcome to WWT Live, part of Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet. I am your professor, Gerard Bonner. We've got a ton to talk about. It amazes me how much can happen in 48 hours. That's always the thing that happens between a Monday and a Wednesday, and it gets really quite crazy. Thankfully, I don't have to analyze this all alone. Got my tag team partner in crime hanging with me. She is sweet as sweet can be. She is wrestling with Honey. Honey, how are you? Uh-oh. Wait. Hold on. The House of Black just showed up. There we go.
Sure.
And we're back.
I'm not sure what just happened there, but I think I got a call or something.
Oh, okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. We can.
Okay. I'm not sure if I can hear you.
Can you hear us?
It's
Are
because
you
the
close?
call's going.
That's
Sorry.
That's all good. Can you hear me? I don't think she could hear me. I think she got attacked by the House of Black, guys. I think that's exactly what happened.
What is going on?
That is so wild.
I can't hear anything.
That's so wild. Julia Hart apparently showed up at your house. This is great. Dylan, good to see you. Eddie, oh yeah, so I think we'll have to get Honey back in the building. Hey, this is live TV. That's what we do. But it is great to see you guys in the chat. Make sure you're sharing this with all of the people. Just a crazy, crazy time. I think the House of Black has let her go, and I think she's back. Honey, are you back?
So I can hear you. Can you hear? Can you hear? Okay.
I
okay,
can.
Cool. Yeah. I don't know who that was, but shout outs to the spam person. That spam needs to get rid of. They need that.
Yeah.
that completely ruined my intro, but I'm here.
You know, it's so funny. As much as you love Malachi Black, we all thought you might have gotten attacked by the House of Black as everything just went dark. It was really quite crazy.
That was a little scary. I mean, I didn't see Julia pop out, so that must be a good thing. You know, she's not creating a new revenge tour on me or taking it out on me somehow. So I'm cool. But I'm good, safe and sound.
Very good. Very, very good. Glad to see and hear that. Matt, welcome aboard. Good to have you here as always. And so we're going to start the show in a slightly different way. There was some sad news to report to kind of end yesterday and start the day. And we send our condolences out to the family of Terry Davis. He was responsible for the platform known as We Love Wrestling. In fact, he was floating around. He's been everywhere. He was in Mania, and you may have run into him, Honey, actually at the Big E breakfast, because he was there as well. And so he had, I don't know the circumstances behind what happened, but this certainly seems like a very untimely death. I know he was at Mission Pro Saturday night. So very sad news, and a lot of the wrestling community is mourning his passing. He was also known as Trey, and a lot of people had a lot of wonderful things to say. Our interactions, while brief, were very, very good. And so just sending our condolences out to his family, to all who love him. A major loss in the wrestling community, and I want to make sure that we acknowledge that before we get into everything else. So certainly our thoughts and prayers are with him, his family, and everybody connected to him. Moving now to some of the news that you came in for. When we left you on Monday, we were trying to figure out who could be the winner of the Battle Royal to become the Women's World Champion on Monday Night Raw. And when all the smoke had cleared, Becky Lynch walked away as the Women's World Champion, besting a number of incredible competitors. The final three involved her, Liv Morgan, Nia Jax. There are lots of questions floating around on the internet already. So let me start before I address those questions and ask you, honey, what were your thoughts? Well, before I do that, because there's a lot of popping going on in the background. And well, I don't know if he's ready yet. So let me make sure we'll give him a proper entrance when he is ready. I think he's ready. I think I know where he is too. And you guys will be able to tell exactly where he is. So let's give him a proper introduction. He's riding high after all things last night, which we will certainly get to, the influence of all things Vice City. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice Mayor is here in all of his regalia. How are you, kind sir?
And he's getting better every single day. How's everybody doing? Happy Wednesday. I apologize. I am not in my normal background. As you can see, I am on the road tending to business.
You're on the road.
But
where? Say that again.
Just tending to some things, some government issues, government business, putting the campaign flyers out there and whatnot.
Yes.
It's going really good, but you're right. I am riding a high. Things are very good. Looking to have a very good next 7 days.
Oh, yes.
Culminating at the end of next Tuesday.
It should be. Go ahead.
I'm here for the gimmick suit, by the way. Just say.
Oh,
he said this whole thing.
Well, MDB is calling you Farnsworth SETI. I think that's quite hilarious. Dylan is calling
you got to be a certain age to appreciate that Farnsworth reference.
Precisely. So shout out there. But getting back here to what happened Monday night, Becky Lynch is the new world champion. Before we start addressing what the internet may or may not be saying, I want to get your thoughts based on all that could have happened and all that did happen. What were your thoughts on Becky Lynch coming out as the world champion, honey?
I definitely think this was their safest option. WWT, I meant T and E. WWE definitely did good with the way that ended, because I was like at the edge of my seat. I don't think I've ever seen two superstars fight on top of the platform that long before one got eliminated.
Yeah.
It was really, really good and very intense towards the end. The obvious choices, I think, were Liv Morgan, Nia Jax, and Becky, and it was just about seeing who was going to actually come out on top. Right. I agree with the decision for WWE as well. I have to say, because Nia Jax already has enough heat on her to the point where if they put that belt on her, people are going to riot. And they don't really have to. And Nia's not really defined by championships much anymore, at least I feel. Liv Morgan, I know a lot of people either were rooting for her or going against her, depending on your side of the fence these days, because, the IWC has its ways. But I agree with them giving the belt to Becky, only because you want to give – I feel like this is preparing Liv for a massive win and a massive crowning. And I think this just creates another target on her revenge tour. So I think this is going to be a lot about building Liv, and what better way than to put her over than have Becky with the belt, because, Becky, not like she needs the title anyway, but Becky is the man. And she, she did her thing again, just when we thought, her the contract talks and everything were up or something like that. And, she was going to go on a little vacation. She said, actually, a spot just opened. So you know what? I'm going to just take my run at it. And she's Becky freaking Lynch, so she's allowed to do that. So anybody who's hating on this decision, I would be inclined to disagree with you, because this was actually the smart decision.
Said, your thoughts on Becky as the women's world champion?
Old reliable, was going on your vacation, and she just did her her best John Moxley impression of just ditching vacation and saying, "Hey, I'll go back to work." I think this says more about the WWE's preparation, meaning that they didn't have a plan B or plan C in the instance of injury. So they said, "Hey, let's go back to Becky," which I will say on the surface, it doesn't make sense because of how she lost at Mania to just put the belt on her. But like Honey said, it's safe. And I think a lot of fans don't want you to play it safe. We want to curate new stories and new things, which shows that the writing team, whomever, didn't think like that. I think the backlash that we see online right now is more alerting than anything, because you have people saying that Becky Lynch has now become the person that's taking opportunities away from the rest of the roster, which really contradicts everything she did in that NXT run. So that narrative that's being spun right now really intrigues me because they're painting her exactly how they've painted Charlotte for years now. So I think there's a lot of Becky fatigue going on within the wrestling community, which is very interesting. But I will say putting this belt on Becky accomplishes a number of things. I think it does really accomplish the live thing. I think it kind of pushes Nia to the back of the line, which I don't really like, unless Nia does get a fair shake. But one thing Becky has always done is she's always given opportunities, and she always tells stories when she has the belt. So hopefully that just means that she's able to tell stories with the entire women's division, kind of like she did with the NXT title.
So there are a lot of interesting comments. I have an opinion I'm going to share in a little bit, but let's go to some of these comments here. Let's see. MDB says, I wanted to riot because Nia didn't win. Okay. Boza says, it makes you wonder, though, if Becky is good to be women's world champion here, why didn't she beat Mommy at Mania? There are, I think, obvious answers to that. I don't think anybody planned on Mommy getting injured. So there obviously were other ideas there. And, you know, Becky certainly appeared as though she was going away for a while. So those plans were in place. Dylan says, I agree with this decision. Liv is going to win it in France and then let the fun and games begin. Boza says, I think Becky holds it for a little while. I don't suspect she will drop it in her first defense. If she does, this proves this was a fail safe. There's another interesting comment here. The small backlash I saw is what Seti said. We don't want safe. We want shocking moments. This is the perfect way to put it on somebody you least suspect, even if it was transitional. Becky,
Maxine was right there after the pep talk. Right there.
Listen.
Well, so let me read this comment, and then I'll give you some perspective. She made her NXT Women's Championship reign better than it should have been. She gave women opportunities that shouldn't have gotten it. Wish Trish was in it. Let me say this. I think, firstly, I do believe this is why it is dangerous to try to book a show solely based on what the internet community believes. Because Brian Danielson told us several years ago that these people are fickle. He said that, and he was absolutely right. He was absolutely right. But here's the other thing that I don't think people are realizing. We have seen a lot of title changes over the last couple of weeks in WWE. We have a new WWE champion. We have a new world champion. We have 2 new sets of tag team champions and a new intercontinental champion, and a new WWE women's champion. 7 new champions were crowned at WrestleMania.
Wow.
7.
Wow.
7. Let me say it again. 7.
Yeah.
And of those seven, the only veterans were Bayley. The only other veteran, you could argue Cody's a veteran, but Cody's never really been a world champion, right?
Right.
The Miz and R-Truth, veterans, but still a relatively new tag team connected to the tag team title situation. And there's one name that I'm missing, and it'll probably come back to Sami Zayn. Thank you. So you got that name, right? So that means we had several new people. First of all of these people were new that stepped into this title picture. Several old reigns and long reigns were taken out were defeated. But then on top of that, you had A-Town Down, new tag team champions. You had Cody Rhodes, the new WWE champion. We honestly had 2 new world champions with Drew McIntyre and then the cash in with Damian Priest, right? You had Bayley, doing what Bayley did, winning the women's title. We had a lot of championships change hands. That's 7 championship title changes. Now we're going to go with an 8th with this women's world title. Okay. So I don't think, and again, looking at only 3 of those champions being veterans, you cannot bring a brand new set of champions in that are like first time champions or what have you. You can't do that. If you don't believe it doesn't work, go revisit WCW in 2000 when they wiped the slate clean and said, sorry, I thought I heard my son, and said that they were going to do all new champions. And then they had all new champions. And I don't know if you'll remember this. There was a point where Billy Kidman beat Hulk Hogan.
Oh my God. Wow. Yeah. Whoa.
Billy Kidman beat Hulk Hogan.
Hey,
okay? Like
Billy Kidman used to be nice.
But here's the thing.
I'm here for that.
This was all in the name of intentionally building new stars. I think what we have to understand is we don't understand how new stars are built. We don't. I hate to be that guy, but we don't. You don't build. Here, look at this. Think about, so everybody who's on the Liv train, think about what people said about Liv Morgan when she initially won the SmackDown Women's title. She won it after winning Money in the Bank. And then she cashed in on, of all people, Ronda Rousey.
Yep.
People automatically said her title run was a fluke. Her title win was a fluke. They said all of those kinds of things. You do not build a star by just letting them randomly do that. It's a better look for that star to beat an established champion. And that's what we saw last night on NXT, which we'll get to that in a second. So
I guess...
And with that,
I guess in Liv's case, she's always been the best runner-up, though.
Well, and to that end, the question becomes, I think, what would Liv Morgan need to do to prove that she's championship material? And again, we can look at what's happened with Trick Williams to kind of use that as a template for perhaps what one needs to do. Before we go to Trick, I'll also mention that in this battle royal, there was mention of Maxine. I thought Maxine had a standout performance in this, eliminating 2 of the people who had basically bullied her. That was a big move. And then she stood up to Nia Jax.
Yeah,
that's amazing. You know, so I think there was some building that actually happened through here without her winning the championship that made this look significant. You know, Chelsea Green got her shine by being eliminated and then appearing not to be eliminated and being close to like the final 4 or final 5, something like that. There were multiple stories that happened in here that I thought were significant. Is Becky Lynch the safe choice? Absolutely. But what you don't want to have at this point is somebody who can't be viewed as a world champion following the reign of Rhea Ripley, the dominant reign of Rhea Ripley. Who else could have done that? Becky seems like that was a good choice.
Yep.
So there is that. Now, from one title change in 48 hours, we go to a second one. And this one literally had the place rocking. As last night at NXT's Spring Break-In, Trick Williams, whose back was against the wall, win your champion, lose you're out of NXT. He took on and defeated the Mad Dragon, Ilya Dragunov, to become the NXT champion. Sid, let's start with you. What were your thoughts on this main event match and the result? Did we get the right result here?
I think the way they built it, we weren't going to get anything other than Trick becoming champion somehow. And you know what? The lead up to the day, I've never seen anything like this. I want to be clear, where it felt like they were kind of foreshadowing what was going to happen the entire day on social medias, having superstars give their take on who they're rooting for. I only heard 2 people say Ilya would win. 2. JD and Pete Dunne. That was it. It
No,
was like
Bobby Lashley's
everybody.
in that group too.
Bobby Lashley too? Okay, I didn't see Bobby's, but
Yep.
like just everybody was pro Trick, but just surveying the entire audience and like pretty much or the whole locker room and pretty much letting us as the audience know like this is who we think has next, not just NXT in the company. This felt
Mhm.
like a company endorsement, not just NXT. So it's like I'm starting to feel like this title reign might be short-lived just because they might want to capitalize on all of this on main roster. And I mean, I didn't know that. I'll be the first to admit, I didn't know or didn't think that Trick had gravity like this. But that man has gravity. He is pulling people towards him because you can feel the energy inside of Orlando. You can see the camera shaking
We were
when
talking
he
about
won
that.
the title and people going whoop that Trick. So this you can actually make argument you can argue that he might be the most popular NXT champion that they've had in the lineage of the title, just by the optics. So did it have the right call? Yeah, strike while the iron's hot. And they're telling you that he's going to have the ball. So I just hope he runs with it. I hope he just builds on his character, builds on the in-ring work, and that a year from now we see a completely different Trick Williams that has like complete staying power wherever he goes.
Honey.
Man, you know I'm happy about this. I was just smiling from ear to ear for the kid because I'm just like, yes, yes, you finally did it. You beat the dragon, and now what I've been feeling can finally happen. He can create a new story for himself. We like said we could probably see a whole new Trick Williams next year. I don't think that he should. I don't think the company should have this title reign be short lived because of the fact that uh, his popularity has been so stellar and just like forthcoming for the last couple of weeks. Like we've known this guy eventually is going to hold gold and he deserves to. And he's a work. He could put the workhorse in it for this this title reign, like a Seth Rollins, if you will, kind of level. I'm not saying that that's what he is, but I'm saying he could build himself up to that. Everybody's already singing his damn song.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I love that the whole evening, it was weird because it's a Tuesday and I'm watching this and I'm like, why does this have a big fight feel like I'm about to watch UFC or something go down?
Right.
Like it just felt like, and then you saw the NXT alumni pop up and I'm just like, well, what the hell's going on here? This is just beautiful. This is great. And it's just like, they're crowning this kid. They're definitely crowning this kid. Part of me towards the end thought it wouldn't happen only because the kickouts at the end and it was like 5 minutes over time. And I was just like, somebody just pin somebody already and just count to 3 so the agony could just be over and we could just finally see the result. And we got what we wanted. Ilya has been nothing short of amazing. He has done what he's needed to do as far as building himself as a main event player. Even, you know, obviously showing that size does not matter, but strength does. And Ilya Dragunov, hats off to him because he had a really good reign. A lot of people probably wouldn't say he did, but I like watching Ilya Dragunov. I like how he speaks. He has championship material all over. But Trick was the right guy, obviously, and Trick is the guy that everybody wants. He's so beloved over there in Orlando, and it's not even a game anymore. So I can't wait to see what new rivalries they stir up, and I can't wait to see Ilya Dragunov show up for King of the Ring.
Professor, I got a question for you, actually.
Yes.
This presentation that we're talking about, where because normally when you have the big fight field, you might see like 1 or 2 former champions. It felt like they emptied the entire locker room. How much do you think this is because of the response to like what Dave Meltzer had said like a week ago?
You know, I don't think that any of this has anything to do with that. I think one of the things that WWE does very well, they pick and choose the kinds of things they're going to respond to. Dave Meltzer has never been somebody they've paid attention to because Dave Meltzer for years has pretty much been anti-WWE. You could have the greatest match in the world in WWE and he'd give it 3.5 stars. You know, he's just not going to do 5 or 6 or 7 stars for that. I do feel like there's a moment. Here's the thing about what's happening. WWE, as of late, has done a really good job of capitalizing on momentum. And this scenario with Trick Williams, I think it's much to what you guys said earlier. It is an overall crowning. It is like we're going to be here to watch this moment happen live.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's amazing to me is for all of the NXT alumni who showed up, it was clear that those fans shook that building last night. And that is a sight that I never thought I'd see. Not that Trick wasn't deserving, but I never thought I'd see a sight where the building looked like it shook, where there was so much noise and excitement that the camera started moving.
It
That
was
doesn't
like
happen.
it was like Finn versus Joe.
Yes.
It was like, and by mind you, this was a Full Sail. This isn't even in the arenas. Like that.
Mhm.
That's big.
Mhm.
I've never seen that. And
Yeah.
then or Sammy and Shinsuke, like where it's
Yeah.
so loud, the place is just erupting. But that
Yeah.
place was absolutely shaking. And they're all for Trick over there. So this is gonna be some good stuff to watch this next year.
And so in terms of how long this run's going to be, I think they did this because they are gearing up for the CW. They are gearing up to do something I think massive on there, and I think Trick is going to be the guy. And what's cool about this is Trick Williams hasn't been wrestling that long. And so because of that, it actually is, it reminds me of when Cena became WWE champion. You know, when Cena became champion, he was immensely popular. His in-ring skill hadn't matched his popularity, but then we started watching it grow. And we started watching his in-ring work match, what his popularity was, and it was wild to see. It was
Mhm.
wild to see,
Mhm.
So I think what's cool is we get to watch the rise of Trick Williams. And it's hard to believe that it was just a year ago that he was still just sitting by the side of Carmelo Hayes, hadn't really wrestled very many matches at all. So I think this is going to be a great, great run. He's obviously incredibly athletic. He's got Shawn Michaels right there, like he's going to learn from the best. And I think this is, again, what you want to do to give people the opportunity to graduate from NXT while keeping NXT strong, and I think that they're doing that with Trick leading the way as the NXT champion. And so I think that's going to be very, very interesting. A lot of things happened last night at NXT Spring Break-In, but when this one particular thing happened, I knew if there was nothing else we talked about today, we would absolutely, positively get into this piece of news coming from NXT's Spring Break-In. And you guys know what it is. As we prep for it, go get some merch.
Hey, yo, you. Yeah, you that's watching this. You sitting on the couch staring at the screen, not knowing what you want to do, like this is an online college. Are you tired of wearing shirts that make you look like an extra stuck in catering? Do you want to step your wrestling swag game up to the next level? Then Women's Wrestling Talk has got you covered. Like literally. Are you for life in pink or black and white? Or maybe you're the EST and people need to respect you accordingly. Want to put some pride in your stride and show off the muscle in your hustle? Then make sure you check out the WWT store. Not now, but right now. Alright? What you waiting for? Head to www.talkpodstore.com and don't make me fight you. Shit.
You heard the woman. Don't make her fight you. And you can go ahead and scan the QR code in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and you can access all of the great merch that's courtesy of Women's Wrestling Talk. Now then, we're going to take a little trip over to Vice City, and we're going to the underground compound to have this great talk that happened last night as they signed the contract for the first ever women's NXT Underground match between Natalya and Lola Vice. Now, Natalya brought out her trainer, which was Carmen Petrovich. Everyone wondered who would be the person to second and help train Lola Vice. And we would find out that it was the Queen of Spades, Shayna Baszler. I'm going to yield the floor to the Vice Mayor because I would like to know, Mayor, what was the lay of the land in Vice City? How were the constituents feeling there after this marquee showing here for Lola Vice?
See, this is what you call laying an elaborate trap. And I feel like I dropped these bars last week when I said it's going to be Shayna. You're talking about a two-time NXT Women's Champion, and you want to come up here and steal clout from the future stars of tomorrow. You come up and you're saying a rookie is training you? A rookie? And Carmen Petrovich, who's maybe had, what, 2 matches on actual NXT Tuesday night programming? Nah. We had to take our queen on the chessboard, move that over there, and put it into position for checkmate. Because now we're going to get prophecy. I said Natty is going. Matter of fact, I'm going to steal a final boss line. Lola going to make Natty bleed next week.
Ooh.
She'll make her bleed, and she's going to pass her out. Because another thing that I didn't like about this segment, I don't like that Carmen got a lick on the Queen of Spades, like a clean lick. Like Shayna didn't even recover from that. So I think that's going to lead into that as well. And Carmen gets choked out next week. But overall, good segment, good back and forth. I like that Natty can always lean on her dungeon ties to like maintain credibility. I love that Lola's mic skills are rapidly improving every single week. Her promos are getting better and better by the week. And I think that's what's going to allow her character to actually build with the audience and the fan base. She probably had, I think Jada Parker won the promo of NXT last night with her comments backstage to Fallon. But her saying that just because I shake my ass just doesn't mean I can't kick yours. Perfect. Lean into that. More of that. But next week, Lola makes history in the first women's NXT Underground. And dare I say, on her way to becoming the inaugural NXT Women's North American Champion. Because something has to give here. We gotta keep building up this star.
Oh yeah, man. All right, honey. what did you think of this moment here?
I'm listen. Back in the black and gold NXT, I was very high on the Queen of Spades. I absolutely loved everything about her reign and how she was one of the most dominant women's champions, aside from Asuka, obviously, in NXT history. So when I heard her music come out, I was like, I literally like raised my hands up and I was just thanking God. I'm like, thank you, wrestling gods. You finally are making sense and doing something up there and having some kind of influence on the production's minds, because that is exactly who you would expect Lola to get. In this case with Natty and Carmen, it's like, sorry, girl, you are not it. And she's lucky she was able to get that lick on Shayna, because you best believe Shayna's going to get one back. And I look forward to seeing it. Natty has this thing where it's so funny because Natty and I have always, my personal viewing relationship with Natty has always been like on and off. It's a love-hate thing. But lately, Natty, it's just, she's looking like a legend more and more. Just when I thought I was tired of seeing her years ago. Now it's just like, oh, okay, you know what? You have this way about, she has this way about her where she knows her place and knows her role and knows where she stands as far as on this roster. And she's a gatekeeper as well. Not in a bad way either. She is, she's the one that it reminds me of like when Jericho or Dolph Ziggler were being because those were the guys that would take care of you in the ring. Those are the people that make sure you're doing your thing right. They'll sell for you and all of that. So Natty's going to give us all of that because we know Lola's going to bring it. But to have the queen on your side, like, is there anyone better? I was just like, it's the queen. It's the queen. How can you not? How can you absolutely not? And I love the look for her because it makes Lola look totally badass.
It really does. It
even
really,
more badass than she did.
Really does. Oh my gosh. So let's look at some of these comments here. Boza says Team Natty all the way. Both Natalya and Lola did a great job of hyping up this fight. MDB says Lola is about to dog walk Natalya.
Dog.
Boza says Natalya is going to knock Lola off her throne next week. Lola went 4-1 in Bellator. She wasn't known in Bellator for her skills. She learned through ATT. She was known for what Natty said. Okay.
Whoa. What?
That's a lot.
That's what Boza said.
That's a
You know
mouthful
what?
there.
I'm not going to interrupt the professor's task here, but I'm going to have time. Because that's crazy.
Mean, go for it. I can come back to the comments. I mean, please.
She wasn't known for her skills as a rising star in Bellator. Literally, the only reason she didn't continue going through Bellator until you're talking about one loss by decision. By the way, we're not talking about she got washed like somebody else who quit WWE. That's a former MMA superstar. Come on now, let's be for real. She could have continued her MMA career just like her sister is starting her MMA career right now. Like. No skill, and yes, American Top Team did help her out a little bit, but no, she's a martial artist first, has been doing martial arts since she was a child. What are we talking about?
This tea is hot. This tea is hot.
That's crazy. You can be Team Natty, but let's not discredit like the real life fighting, you know, like what happens in actuality. Like that's cool. Natty got one fan. I told you she got at least one out there.
Slay him.
Woo! Let's see. MDB says Carmen Petrovic is a black belt in karate. She's got credentials. Eric says NXT was a great show last night with the biggest star outside of Trick being Jada Parker and her ponytail. We will talk about that as well because that was a moment. Lola learned that Carmen Petrovic is no joke. I think she wore the wrong boots when she nailed that kick. People were saying it was weak. Let's see. MDB says that Lola in that outfit was phenomenal. Boza says wardrobe department had issues. Jada lost her extensions in that match with Fallon. Roxanne's boot came apart and she still finished the match. Let's see. Baszler. Oh, where is it? Baszler's on the Mount Rushmore of NXT champions, man or woman. I don't think there's any argument with that. Let's see. Boza says, am I crazy to think that this should have been the first women's fight pit match? I think they will do well next week. It's kind of the same. You know, I think
Natty doesn't deserve that.
Oh,
build that. You can build that up for Petrovic and it would make sense, but not Natty. Not in the fight pit. You gotta remember what was the last fight pit? Riddle and
Riddle and Seth.
Yeah, it was Riddle.
It wasn't Thatcher. No,
Timothy Thatcher. And,
the fight pit match you're talking about.
Yeah. Who was it? Was it Riddle or I thought there was another guy with?
I thought it was Riddle and Thatcher.
Might have been Riddle and Thatcher.
I think you're right.
That makes sense. You know, that makes sense. So you had quite a few fans there on your side. Said MDB says, imagine someone being 4-1, not being known for their skill. Matt said, preach. Cousin Ron said, are you saying Boza is pulling a Conor McGregor? That's interesting. And
I want to know what that means.
In Ciampa. Okay, that makes sense.
Oh, that is what it was because Ciampa won that, and I felt like that was the wrong call. Yeah.
I'll be glad this is a big test for Lola. If she can look good against Natty, she will be great. I actually think that this is the right setup for her. It's leaning into her skill set. You know, it's kind of like if you have someone who is a singer, why wouldn't you have them in some case showcase their musical skills? Like it just makes sense. She is in this case a trained MMA fighter. Why not give her that space to showcase that? And you have a space like Underground already. Let her make history. She wins that. There's certainly a way that you can catapult her to make that happen. So I think this is going to be interesting to watch as it goes down. Now the show started last night, and certainly I'll quickly mention Jada Parker and the ponytail. Honey, I'm going to let you talk about that because I think you can lend perspective. Talk about the significance of what Jada did when she took the ponytail off? Because I don't think everybody necessarily understands. So
Listen,
please.
listen. There's so much more, especially in in performance. Period. There's so much more that meets the eye, and so many things you got to deal with behind the scenes, or to make sure your look is right and everything. Look, what Jada did last night is something I definitely would have done, because, like, girl, I don't need you. I don't need this. Look. Yep. I just flipped. I first of all, I fell out. I fell out. I lost it. I was like, girl, she done tossed her ponytail. No, she didn't. But the significance of that is, we're all that with what goes on in performance, and in any kind of creative atmosphere, whether you're singing, dancing, wrestling, acting, performing any kind of way, like, there's things that we do to accentuate and to enhance what we already got, the look, and not that Jada needs much more enhancing anywhere, but the hair was just a thing, I'm just saying, I'm just being real about it, okay, just from one Latina Black girl to another, I'm just saying, but she didn't need that ponytail, and after a while, it was the end of the match, so she was like, girl, so what, I'm done with it. And it was more of I felt more empowered by seeing that, because it's like, girl, even you go through it too, and you know what matters is that my hair may be messed up, but my moves ain't messed up, and I still won the match, and I still slayed, and I still didn't stop what I was doing. So shout outs to Jada Parker for being such a trooper that she is. And Parkerville is sounding like a nice place these days. So, I'm team Jada Parker these days. I might have to go vote for her in Parkerville and make sure she stays on top, because she's doing really well for herself, and she's definitely a rising star. But as far as the significance of it, listen, guys, it's just what us girls go through. It's just what we deal with. It is what it is. And it's fun.
We got hotels in Parkerville right now where you book 3 days, you get your 4th day free. So go ahead.
Where's the
I'll put a link in the chat.
There's the rewards points. You got rewards points.
I know, right? We need rewards points.
Build as you book. Build as you book.
There it is. There it is. Special Little Nobody says that was the most pure blackest thing to ever happen on NXT. Yes. I don't think there's any arguing with that.
No.
I'll counter. I'll counter. It's a tie for me, because Stokely and the pink do-rag.
You know what?
Fair enough.
Stokely and the pink do-rag, bringing out the Creed brothers. I think that was at not a stand and deliver. It was at one of those cards. That's a tie for me.
That's hilarious. And then y'all knew this was coming. Jada's ponytail fell off, and I couldn't weave it. Here you are. And
oh dear God!
I knew I would need it at some point today, and thank you for allowing me.
We've been really nice, MDB. We haven't given you any womps in like about a month, I would say.
We haven't. We have just kind of held off and kept moving. He's been waiting for it, though.
Yeah.
Boza
Jada is certainly ready for the CW. For sure.
Oh,
that's
hilarious.
That's going to be a CW character if I've ever seen it.
Jada has that presence in the ring. I wonder if she will outgrow out the mud or at some point. I'm sure she will. And when that time comes, it'll be abundantly.
She's the only one keeping them relevant, because I don't think they
haven't done much. They had a tag match a few weeks ago, but I haven't heard much from them since. And MDB
who is Reggie?
Waiting for that.
Reggie's been wrestling somebody lately.
He wrestled Javon Evans just a couple weeks ago. Yeah. In a great match.
He's put on a couple matches with him.
A great match. All right. So all of this talk about what happened with NXT was definitely a setup for this Friday night, the start of the WWE draft. And I think perhaps more than any year in recent memory, this draft could get interesting. We started off last night's episode of NXT with all 3 general managers on screen talking about the draft, prepping for the draft. And so it's going to be very, very intriguing to see how this all works. So today we started finding out. Hold on, guys. Here are the rules. Review the rules. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds like a little professor issue,
Yes.
and maybe we'll get a little professor preference here. But we found out the rules. We know that the draft starts this Friday. For SmackDown, there will be 4 rounds and 16 total picks. The picks start Friday. We also know that there is a pool of superstar talent that will only be available Friday. Then the rest of the pool the following Monday. We know that champions are protected on each brand. I think that's the biggest wrinkle that I noticed is that the champions are protected. I kind of felt like this would be the perfect time to swap champions in lieu of Damian Priest's actions on Monday, seemingly leaving Judgment Day. And I don't think Cody needs to be anywhere near the bloodline and the revival of the bloodline. I think he needs to tell his story away from that as far as possible. The only championships that are available to switch brands are the women's tag team champions. So Kabuki Warriors, which I think that's weird because the titles travel to all 3 brands anyway.
Anyway, yeah.
But SmackDown will pick first on Friday. Raw has the most picks, being a 3rd-hour show. One thing that is omitted here that Professor and I spoke about in the chat earlier is the omission of NXT. So we know NXT talent will be available, but initially when the draft emerged and Ava was on screen with Aldis and Pierce, I was under the impression that NXT actually had picks.
Yes.
I was going to actually write an article tonight about what I think NXT should do in the draft. But this is telling me Ava ain't got no picks. So what's up with that?
So
What's up with that?
let's talk a little bit about that, because I think this is part of the challenge of how NXT has been presented. NXT has been presented, and even on some content that was released today where Shawn Michaels was talking about Trick Williams and his win, he used the word developmental, referencing the brand. So I think it would be very, very difficult if we're calling this in the current iteration developmental. It'd be very hard to draft somebody from Raw and SmackDown to a developmental brand. It could definitely be looked at detrimentally. So I think there's that. Plus, with the idea of NXT, and we always use this term of them getting the call up to Raw or SmackDown, it's almost the equivalent of you could draft a high school player into the NBA or into college, but you wouldn't draft an NBA player back to college ball.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of along those lines, which that makes things interesting. Now, I'll tell you, I pay attention to small things. This is the first year that the yellow color for NXT was included in the draft logo. And so I totally understand the thought process there. I would love to see us get to a point where NXT does get some draft picks, but let's also explain another reason why they don't necessarily need draft picks. NXT still has so many people who have yet to debut on television that are in the Performance Center. From their NIL program, from indies that they've signed. You know, there are a lot of people who are fighting to get up to that 2-hour television show. Some of them end up on Level Up. Others of them have not seen television yet. So I think NXT isn't hurting for people to be on television. Yeah, so I think that ends up being not explained, but probably should be explained in some way. Particularly if we're seeing the NXT general manager on TV. Now, I assume that we're seeing her on TV because several of her stars will at some point be eligible. And that takes us to this portion. And there's a little part that you see on the bottom right-hand portion of this flyer that this talks about the people who are eligible on Friday and on Monday, but also it says plus NXT stars eligible, which tells us that we will likely see some NXT stars drafted on Friday and on Monday. So there's that. But again, you guys obviously have gone through the rules and we've gone over why these rules are the way they are. I think the WWE over the last few years has done a really good job of making the draft feel important. Um, this year feels more important, I think, than any other year, just because we've got this new era happening.
Yes.
What's also interesting, and I think you guys probably talked about this, unlike previous drafts, champions are now protected on each brand. So we're not going to see, the world heavyweight champion on SmackDown, the WWE champion on Raw, which now means that for sure Cody Rhodes is locked in on SmackDown. Damian Priest is locked in on Raw. They've obviously split the tag titles, and the women's tag champions are eligible to go to a different brand, though, of course, they will represent on all three brands. So this will be interesting. I will obviously, I think we'll wait until Friday, though I think now would be a good time, but we've got so many other stories. Friday, we will start talking about who we think goes where on the draft. Because I think, and we could arguably make Friday a whole draft show if we wanted to, just because I think it would be really interesting to see who we think goes to the draft. But here are the eligible people on Friday. There's an interesting face in there that I'm not used to seeing as part of an eligible draft pool. And that is the tribal chief.
And his wise man.
And his wise man, Tama Tonga, Solo. This is going to be a very... Now, here's what else is interesting. You'll note that for these pools, like for Friday's pool, because I got a little confused. I wasn't sure if you just see one specific brand, but you see people from both brands on Friday and on Monday. So interestingly enough, in this pool for Friday, there's also Seth Rollins. There's also Braun Breaker and AJ Styles and Jey Uso, which I think is interesting. Nia Jax is in here.
Alpha Academy.
Alpha Academy is
a lot
in
of them
here.
Are on Raw, yeah.
Liv, Ricochet, Randy Orton, Bianca Belair. This is going to be an interesting group that they're going to pull from for Friday. And then Monday's available pool, obviously a bit larger. CM Punk is on that list. Some interesting names. Braun Strowman is in there. All of Damage Control, Judgment Day, Apollo Crews, who we have not seen in quite some time.
Odyssey Jones as well.
Odyssey Jones,
I just noticed that.
who we've not seen since last year's draft. I think that's super interesting. Let's see who else I see in here. Jade Cargill, that's interesting. The LWO, Shinsuke. That's Tegan Knox. I was trying to see who that was. Tegan Knox, Kevin Owens. This is an interesting list. The Final Testament, which I think it's interesting that they're drafted, but they certainly appear to be spending some time on NXT. So this is going to be interesting. This draft looks to be very interesting, and we'll certainly do some conversations about it on Friday. Now, one thing we know for sure, as a number of contracts are coming up, Finn Balor dropped a note on Monday that scared a lot of people. As with this sign, he talked about that he has spent 10 years in the WWE. He's had an amazing time. And now is a great time to, I hear a crazy echo. I don't know why. And now is a great time to let everybody know that he's not going anywhere. So it is certainly apparent that Finn Balor has re-signed with WWE. According to Sean Ross Sapp, he says it's a multi-year big money contract, whatever that could mean. However you look at it, I think it's a brilliant move. Finn Balor certainly has been steady Eddie in WWE. He has done all sorts of great things. And I think seeing WWE secure the bag on this just makes sense. I will just flat out tell you, I don't think that there's any major star that they have right now whose contract is up for renewal that's gonna choose not to resign. I don't see that happening.
And I will end this part with this. Finn Balor, for all of you who don't know the story of Finn Balor when he first got to WWE, this is a story that needs finishing. I will just say that.
Very interesting. And I agree. I think Finn has put in good work. Oh. Ooh.
Uh-oh. What has come to your mind?
What if Finn Balor is the one to end the reign of Damian Priest?
Oh, yeah.
They did have beef last year before kind of righting the ship.
They
Yep.
did.
And the Damian Priest stuff was so weird on Monday, man. I noticed it earlier in the show when he started wearing his old merch from like before when he was doing the Bad Bunny stuff. So like no purple, just regular Damian Priest merch. I just don't understand why you disband Judgment Day like that, because they were not only moving a lot of merch units, not even with the R-Truth gimmick stuff, but like it was working, and I feel like he needs that.
I feel you on that side, but what I think is happening here is the Judgment Day is imploding in itself. And for Judgment Day being the dominant faction it has been, the only thing that can stop the Judgment Day is itself. So, because nobody's been able to really beat them. And so I think that it's kind of like a more poetic way. I mean, who's to say? We still don't know if it's fully done. I mean, granted, you know, Damian Priest said what he said on Monday, and he's like, stay out of my business and mind yours. And JD McDonough put out a very interesting tweet earlier talking about he's off and he don't want no parts. Like, it's just, there's a lot going on. But the one person we haven't heard from at all is Mr. Finn Balor himself, Mr. New Contract. So I'm interested to see what happens when he returns, because we know Dom is unreliable.
He's going to Legato.
Different.
Dom is a Legato.
I feel like Dom might end up running Legato.
Well, but we need to understand, and I should have grabbed the picture. I didn't know we were going here. That moment with Dom and Liv. There is something there.
I love that that's all we got, too. I love that that's all we got, because by the end of it, and then commercial went on, I was like this. Wait, what? What? Oh, it's happening? They're tapping in our chats somehow? Like, what is going on here?
Liv about to show up with a shirt that says, "I'm your mommy now."
Listen, if Liv's revenge tour involves disbanding the Judgment Day and taking Dom as her own,
taking literally everything that Rhea loves, and it could possibly end with her getting that championship. So, like I said, they're preparing Liv for something massive, and she's not happy about losing that battle royal. So I look forward to seeing the build up for Miss Liv once again, because I feel like she's definitely earned and she deserves it for all the haters out there.
And there are many. So with that said, this was kind of some sad news for sure. We've been seeing kind of a small trickling of releases that have happened from WWE, as opposed to, the massive cuts that have happened in times past following Mania. And one of the additional cuts is Cameron Grimes, who was on the socials, I believe, yesterday with a very tearful message talking about how much he loves WWE. This is all he ever wanted. He got the phone call yesterday that he was being released. He also got a lot of love from the wrestling community, a lot of wrestlers and other talents who've been in this position who have gone on and said, hey, listen, after 90 days, we got a spot for you, and we'll be looking to see you. And so I want to get your thoughts on the career of Cameron Grimes in WWE, and where do you think he turns up in 90 days?
Well, the thing about the 90 days, didn't that just get eradicated?
No, it did not. It did not get eradicated. I think so. So for those who don't know what's happening, there was
the non-competes.
Right. The non-competes, there was something from, I believe, the FCC or the FTC rather, that kind of said they're going to do away with non-competes. They're specific for non-competes that are 120 days and older. But where this does impact pro wrestlers is many wrestlers are known as independent contractors, and this does impact independent contractors as well. So at first I thought, oh, this is not going to really be an issue for wrestlers, since it's usually a 30, 60, or 90-day non-compete. But when you throw the independent contractor piece in there, that makes things interesting. So it's still to be determined how this will impact wrestlers. What's also interesting that most may not realize is during that 90 days for WWE, you are still getting paid by WWE. So that is also, to a degree, kind of cool. You're not completely out of money. You get a chance to, find other work and things of that nature. So yeah, so that was just an addendum to that.
No, I think Grimes had oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I was really sad about this one. I was just gonna keep it short and sweet with this one, but I was really sad about this one because it's like the guy moved up to the roster and barely had a touch in the ring, barely, and he's a very gifted wrestler. But sometimes this form of this thing that has happened to him, and the way that it has affected him, this can always lead to something better. He obviously knows that he's not alone in this wrestling community because he's beloved by a lot of people, and he did do well. I just feel like he sometimes you have to go away from the bird's nest a little bit to fly away and do your own thing, and come back and you'll be a whole different person. So you never know, and you never say never. I believe he definitely has a return spot for WWE at any point in time.
Said?
Yeah, I thought Grimes was fun in NXT, and I don't think they leaned into any of that made him who he was in NXT on main roster. Not getting really able to work a full program. I think he worked one with Waller, but they should have. And I'll go as far as to say maybe the babyface stuff kind of hurt him. He kind of built his notoriety as a heel, and then kind of was doing the Ted DiBiase stuff. He probably could have held on to that $1 million title for a long time. That could have been a staple on main that would have got him over with the casual fans. But it's just unfortunate because he worked really hard to get in phenomenal shape, and then was doing really good work on top of that as well. So to see that and to see how it's affected him, obviously mentally, is very unfortunate. I think he always has a home in TNA. So I think that'll be the first logical step to go there. But even with the partnership with TNA, maybe it's just one of those things where you have to part ways for some time, because he could have been an ace in the hole. Could have been an ace in the hole in the mid-card picture right now, but maybe there's just so many mouths to feed on the roster. They just had to do what they had to do.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, if there's anything I like, it's that the pro wrestling space is as healthy as it's ever been. So there will definitely be other places for him to work if he is interested, for sure. So definitely wishing Cameron Grimes, a.k.a. Trevor Lee, very, very well. Congratulations to Athena, who yesterday celebrated 500 days as the Ring of Honor Women's World Champion. Major feat. It's really quite incredible to see what she's doing. How do you think history will speak of Athena's world title reign, honey?
Legendary, if not for lack of a better word, deserving even, because she was one of my favorites when she was involved with the WWE, and I was just always upset that they were not giving her a chance for much. In NXT, she did have her moments as well. But what she's accomplished here in Ring of Honor is completely unprecedented, and I love that it's her. She's completely made history in it. I don't know what that is, but she's completely made history in itself. And I'm actually happy to say that I was able to see one of those 500 day defenses. You know what I'm saying? Well, 500 wins. Not wins, but you know what I mean. Just to see how impactful she is in Ring of Honor, and to see how much she's grown in Ring of Honor and really recreated herself and reinvented herself every time she gets out on that ring and in that stage. It's just really refreshing to see, and I'm always here for Athena just staying on top. I mean, she could stay on top forever she wants to. I love that they kind of gave her the Oscar route because she's somebody who could have gone that route in NXT.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Your thoughts on Athena's reign, said.
It's positive, very, very deserving. And I think back to, I guess it would be considered the pandemic days in WWE backstage, where she didn't even think she would wrestle again after the injury. She thought her career was over. And I remember seeing her tear up on the show, just thinking about her career. But to go from that to this just shows the power of just sheer will and wanting to will yourself to the top of the industry. And now you have to take notice of her. And I think that's what's beautiful about this run is that she's undeniable.
Right.
Despite not being still in WWE, despite not being booked on AEW television, she's undeniable. We have to talk about the thing. She's putting on such stellar matches night in, night out, and has put on some of the best matches of the past year. So she's forcing the conversation, and I hope that I just hope she continues to get her shine.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And sorry, there's a power tools in the background. Don't know what is going on outside of this room.
We knew something was happening.
Are they updating the infrastructure out there in Parkerville or Vice City? Is that what's going on? Is there some contracting going on?
That's clearly what's happening. That's
adding
clearly
what's
happening. I thought you'd be in the office, so I understood. I understand for sure. So congratulations to Athena. Let's see. There are some comments over here. Let's see. Athena would kill against the Stardom roster, which I think that'd be some fun stuff. Boza says, just wish she was showcased more on the AEW side. I don't know.
I don't think she needs it.
I don't know. AEW has not treated Ring of Honor champions well at all. And I will highlight that in just a few minutes. So I think it's probably good for her to be where she is, just because I do think she gets to be showcased very, very well. And speaking of Athena, if you're looking for Athena, July the 12th, it's been announced. This is a dream match in Prestige. She'll be taking on Masha Slamovich at Combat Clash in Portland, Oregon. This is going to be amazing. So I think it's going to be awesome. Absolutely awesome. Again, we'll be talking more about this, I'm sure, as this is happening in July. Athena versus Masha Slamovich. That's going to be insane. So there's an interesting piece of news as we talk about all things AEW, Ring of Honor. You have to talk about New Japan and their connection. And the president over at New Japan, that of course is Hiroshi Tanahashi, did an interesting interview. And in this interview where he was on Pivot Talk, this is one thing that he said, which I think is so intriguing. He says, I guess one thing that's helpful is that it's open to both men and women, talking about the WWE, regardless of age. He says, also the speed at which star wrestlers keep coming out, the speed of this turnover. Again, it's a little bit different from the way it's done with Japanese promotions, and I feel envious of this. It's very interesting how New Japan is paying attention again to the system that the WWE has, and they recognize how quickly, relatively, the WWE can create stars. And this has been a long-term problem for New Japan Pro Wrestling, which was one of the reasons why they've tried to branch off into the U.S. and have some of the U.S. stars serve as stars for New Japan since they're already known, which I think is very, very interesting. But if you think that's interesting, this is the piece of news that you'll really want to hear. One of their wrestlers, whose name is Yota Tsuchi, had an interview with Tokyo Sports. And in this interview, he does not say very kind things relative to AEW and their view of New Japan and the IWGP World Championship. Here's what he said. Where was the value of New Japan? If Moxley has agreed to be the champion, then he certainly has the right to fight for the title. The problem is New Japan Pro Wrestling said nothing about it. What is that feeling? I wonder if they don't feel any discomfort with that. I feel nothing but disgust and displeasure. He goes on to talk about a match that's scheduled to happen tonight as the first defense for Jon Moxley of the IWGP World Championship is not against a New Japan contracted wrestler. Instead, it's against Powerhouse Hobbs. Here's what Tsuji said about that. He said, quote, Hobbs may be a great fighter, but it's strange that a fighter who has no connection to New Japan and has never been to New Japan is suddenly challenging for the top belt, even if he doesn't win the New Japan Cup. I wonder if he has a visa, which I think is kind of shady to say that. Even if he were to win the belt, would he be able to come to Fukuoka? I wonder how long they'll continue to be beholden to AEW, which has no respect for the IWGP. We are lowering the value of the Pinnacle by ourselves. And I think we have to break out of this situation. Guys, this is a New Japan wrestler. This is a New Japan wrestler saying this about their top title and AEW. Honey, what do you make of this? Because we as fans have said this, but to hear their wrestlers say this is on a whole different level.
It definitely is. I would also go ahead and say shout outs to Miss Marie Shadows, who was with us last week, because I do remember her openly explaining her displeasure for what they're doing with the Japan Championship and you know why Moxley and this, that, and the third. Listen, man, it's all about perspective, and this is his truth. Like I always say, I don't like to determine who's saying the truth and who's not, but the proof is in the pudding as well, because we've seen how they've used that title or how they've supposedly used that title throughout AEW, and it's kind of just like, you know, like a dust it off or sweep under the rug kind of situation. This man is brutally honest, and I'm so here for it, with a little tad of shade, which, you know, which is pretty darn good, and that's probably one of the best like promos that's not a promo that I've ever heard. I give it to him. I give it to him in that retrospect. Yoda, I'm not sure what's gonna happen with him after he said all of this, but I would sure hope that that they would be listening and paying attention, because like just like in WWE, how it's taken them so long to actually build a roster and build a productive team that actually cares about their talent. New Japan should obviously take note from that. You can't just put a title on somebody and call them a champion. You can't just put them in a ring and just call them a wrestler. You have to tell the story, and part of that is usually hit or miss when it comes to the New Japan superstars. So it's really unfortunate that he'd have to probably say this, but maybe he felt obligated to because he felt it was important to say. And you know what? I'm here for it.
Seth, let me ask you this. I think it's so interesting that these two stories literally come out the same day, where on one hand, you have the president, Hiroshi Tanahashi, saying, hey, I'm super jealous of WWE and how quickly they can make stars. Then you have one of your current stars in New Japan saying, hey, look, why don't we even know that this guy is going to be our champion? Is there more happening in New Japan than we realize just based on what both of these stories are telling us?
There could be. And if you're thinking what I'm thinking, there's no penalty for tampering in professional wrestling. But we know that now there's more of a willingness of the WWE under Triple H's creative to work with other companies and other brands. So if Tanahashi is, I don't want to say jealous, envious, and wanting to help his brand long term, he's looking out for the best of his superstars and talent for years to come. And this man, he's saying what needs to be said. We've been seeing this on tape for so long, and it's like you would think that maybe the fake TK is trying to elevate that title by featuring it on American soil, but it's not doing that, because what did he say? He's not going against a New Japan pro wrestler. And I think Mox's commitments to New Japan have always been genuine. I think he loves it over there. I think he believes in the brand. I think he holds the brand to a high standard. But the partnership up until this point has been very one-sided. And I think people have probably just quietly just been maybe waiting for it to change, or waiting for better to emerge, but better's not coming. It's just not. And I think this was an example of somebody being fed up and speaking out because everybody's being silent about it, and they don't want New Japan to just basically be AEW light. So I think that, and like I said, I think Mox is a great flag bearer. I think he respects New Japan and all his contributions over there because he was doing some New Japan work before AEW was ever a thing.
Right.
But I think as far as building new stars in a season where New Japan is quite frankly desperate for new stars, something has to give. And I don't think that this partnership, I don't know what the agreement is or how long this partnership is supposed to last, but I think Tanahashi is just looking for other avenues right now so New Japan can still be here for the next few decades.
I was going to say, I pose a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that Tanahashi is regretting the partnership?
It's interesting because one of the things that I thought was interesting about his commentary is he did not make that statement about AEW. That he didn't say, hey, I'm jealous of how quickly they are able to make stars. He didn't even talk about their star-making ability. So I think it's interesting. And I think, again, under kind of new leadership, you do start to wonder, how long these things are in play and if you can indeed get out of said partnership. Because this partnership, it's very clear. It is very one-sided. I don't
TK
remember
got death row over there.
It's wild. It's wild. And the best thing that happens is they have an event. I mean, think about this. I believe it was 2 years ago at Forbidden Door where, if my memory serves me correctly, it was supposed to be Tanahashi and CM Punk for the AEW World Title. Punk got injured, so it ended up being Tanahashi and I don't remember who else. Was it Moxley? And they ended up fighting for the vacant world title, or maybe MJF. I don't remember who it was.
I think it was Mox. I think it was Mox.
And they ended up fighting for the AEW World Title, and of course Mox won.
And Mox won. Yeah, it was Mox.
Yeah, it's we've not seen New Japan Pro Wrestling presented in a favorable light where they look as though they are equal to AEW. Couple that with you just had 2 to 3 of New Japan's major stars over the last year defect from New Japan and fully go to AEW. We watched Forbidden Door to see how Jay White would fare against these people. We watched to see how Okada would fare. We watched to see how Ospreay would fare. Now they're all elite. So who would we even want to see from New Japan at this particular point at Forbidden Door in 2 months? So this is an interesting perspective, and I think it's interesting that Tsuji mentioned it. He said it to Tokyo Sports, so that is very telling.
He's making sure that everybody hears what he's saying,
especially in his home country, which I think is really important.
That's very big.
So we will certainly see how all of this plays out. And speaking of that, tonight, of course, is Dynamite. Happening from the mothership. They're going back to Daly's Place tonight and in Jacksonville. And as we mentioned, the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, Jon Moxley defends against Powerhouse Hobbs. This does, again, seem wild because Hobbs has not been involved in New Japan, no competition there at all. This was initially supposed to be a non-title match, somehow became a title match, and it's just wild. It's very wild. But it's happening tonight. Also, Swerve Strickland gets his first match as AEW World Champion in an eliminator match against Kyle Fletcher. Now, this is going to someone's point. I don't remember who made the point earlier in the show, asking to see Athena more on AEW television. This is why you don't want to see her on AEW television. Go back. The last Ring of Honor champion to win a match on AEW television was Samoa Joe when he successfully defended the TV title and then he gave it up. Every other Ring of Honor champion that has been on AEW television since that point has lost. Every single one of them. And
Wow.
so this is not a good look. Think about this. The Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, the Undisputed Kingdom, had to qualify to get in the tournament for the AEW World Tag Titles and lost the qualifier match. How do the Ring of Honor World Tag Champions not even get a bye into the tournament? Doesn't make any sense. So the Ring of Honor champions aren't treated very well in the AEW universe. So I don't want that for Athena. And I think this is unfortunate for Kyle Fletcher, who is a great champion,
He's
a
phenomenal.
great wrestler. You know, think about this. He ended up being the first match on Dynamite just a couple of weeks ago for Ospreay. And he was still the world television champion. Things that just don't make sense. Anyway, that's happening tonight. Also, we will see championship celebration for Willow Nightingale as she celebrates winning the TBS championship. And this ought to be really interesting. Mina Shirakawa from Stardom, who will have Mariah May in her corner, takes on Anna Jay. And the last time we saw Mariah May and Mina Shirakawa on our AEW television screens, let's just say it got interesting. So we'll see where all of this goes. But that's your look at what's scheduled for Dynamite tonight. Of course, that kicks off at the top of the hour, and it is live coast to coast. So if you are on the West Coast, it will actually be airing live tonight, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. This has been quite the show. The show. And there's an interesting piece of news. I didn't get a flyer up, but it happened. They started talking about 20 minutes before we came on. I don't have more details on this, but I will tell you it's being reported that Jimmy Uso has been sidelined with an undisclosed injury. There is not a timetable yet for his return. So I'm intrigued to see what this means for future things with the bloodline and the like. So we'll keep our eyes and ears peeled for this.
This is what happens when the tribal chief isn't around anymore.
I'm telling you, it's just terrible. Kind of wild.
Sad.
Absolutely wild. All right. Seth, how can the people find you in the social streets?
You can find me on Twitter at Says, CEWD_SAYS on the gram. Said is the answer. Check out my website for all my writings and stuff, CedricDWeldon.com. On this platform every week, and I write for Daily DDT. I should have some draft content coming real soon. Some draft thoughts for Daily DDT.
Nice. That should be a lot of fun. Honey, how can the people find you?
You guys can find me here Monday, Wednesdays, not this Friday, but every Friday after this. I'll be back on every Friday here with the WWT Live crew. Don't forget my Honey Smackdown watch-alongs every Friday night at 8 o'clock. Come and join me in the festivities. Grab your popcorn and let's talk some wrestling-ish. And Mondays and Fridays prior to the shows, I do Honey Pot predictions, so check those out on my socials. TikTok Wrestling with Honey, Instagram Wrestling with Honey, Facebook Wrestling W Honey, and the new YouTube will be running soon, the Wrestling with Honey podcast. And I will be doing a video review of Becky Lynch's book as well. So a lot of things working.
I like it. You can find me, of course, at Bounderfied on all the socials. Check out all the things we have going on there. You can check out my commentary work with Southern Honor Wrestling and IWE on IWTV. I've got some more shows coming up with them in May, but we just dropped the Southern Honor show on IWTV, so check that out. You can also check out my commentary work with the Nightmare Factory on their YouTube page. Also with Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, which I just found out that some of the matches from Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling are also being aired on Memphis Wrestling. So if you check that out on their YouTube page, you will find out my commentary work there as well as with All Caribbean Wrestling. All sorts of great things, including matches from Philly Mania, are there. And then my work with Ashe Wrestling, you can check out on the socials for Ashe, or at AsheWrestling.com is where you can check out the full show. Some great moments happening there, and you want to gear up for our next show, which is June the 22nd. It feels like this is going to be a very busy summer. Very, very busy summer. So we'll keep you posted on all of the dates with that. Make sure you're staying connected to us here at Women's Wrestling Talk. WW Talk Pod is the space for all things socials. Great things. Oh, okay. I was like, time out. I saw what you're doing. I caught it.
WWT. Sorry.
WWT. I caught it. I was like, wait, what? But yeah, WW Talk Pod is the social space, interviews, content, all sorts of great things happening there. Also, check out the website, www.talkpod.com. Great things happening there. Lots of interviews and content. Shout out to everyone. Boza, Cousin Ron, MDB, Eric, Eddie. Let's see. Special Little Nobody's in here. Matt is in here. Shadow Ranger, I saw you in here. Cindy-O, you're in here as well. I feel like I'm still missing some people. Dylan, of course, Dylan. And everybody else. What a great, great show it has been today. We appreciate you guys rocking with us. Make sure you check out that merch by scanning that QR code in the upper right-hand corner. There are a bunch of post shows that are happening in this space and new ones coming seemingly all the time. Be on the lookout for that. We will be back here on Friday for WWT Live as part of Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Thanks for joining WWT. Don't forget to like us on all social media platforms at WW Talk Pod. Like and subscribe on all video and audio platforms like yesterday, my G. And check out our website at www.talkpod.com. Thanks for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.